a it takes a week, but it's still frozen. It has that, I can't remember what it's called, that frozen packaging thing. Dry ice. It has dry ice in it. So it's delicious.
How much do you get and how much does it cost?
Well, it's $145 a package, and you get 12 servings, and they're a little over 6-ounce servings. Oh. And so because it's just me, I do it every couple months. And I think it's delicious, and it's wild caught. Obviously, you can get that farm stuff anywhere.
Yeah,
it's a couple bucks more than the grocery store.
Hey, Judy.
And some of that's the shipping, and I don't have to pay for gas to go to the grocery store all the time for it.
Costco also has the wild caught, Alaskan salmon that's frozen. That might be a little cheaper.
That's right. I'm fine with what I have. Thank you, though.
Pete's has really good fish and shrimp. Probably not as good as that, though.
Who does?
Pete's, well, in Chicago, there's a fancy grocery store.
Kind of like Whole Foods?
It's higher end than Whole Foods.
Higher end than Whole Foods. Whoa, we used to have one of those here in my town, and it's now an REI.
Well, you gotta go catch your own fish now.
Right? You can hunt and fish for your own stuff. Hey, Lisa. Hey, Sarah. Kevin, welcome back. Thank you for coming back. I guess you enjoyed our conversation last week.
Got me coming back.
I love it. I love it. David GB, call him DGB, and I'm STK, which is kind of fun. Hello, hello. All right. Well, let's get this started today. Last week we talked about follow up and the emotions behind that. Today, I sent this email from a friend of mine, a coach, to Sajad this morning. Did you read that email yet? That article I sent you, Sajad?
No, I had to get the car emissions.
Okay. So basically, this coach friend of mine, his name is Townsend Wardlaw. He wrote an article about what to say and how to talk about, and it was basically a conversation. The whole article was just a conversation back and forth between him and a client who had agreed to work with him, and then a week later said, no, I can't do it. And the conversation about integrity that they had was so amazing. And I thought we'd go there today if you guys are up for an integrity conversation.
Oh, I like that.
Like that?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, awesome. So I'm gonna pull up this email, and
I put it in the chat already.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So if you wanna click on that article, he writes on Substack, which you can read his articles for free, but then there's like a paid option, which is pretty cool. So he calls himself the coach of being, which if you know anything about the ultimate coach, Steve Hardison, he wrote a book called The Ultimate Coach, and it wasn't a book about coaching. It was a book about who are you being. And really, when I read the book, it was the insight that, here's Steve Hardison. He charges $100,000 per client. You pay upfront. You get 50 sessions with him for that $100,000. And if you quit, you don't get the money back. The money gets donated to charity. He started off coaching at that fee or maybe slightly less. And his sessions are like 4 hours. And really, really incredible book that talked about how he is with everyone. So literally treating the barista at Starbucks like a client, treating a homeless guy like a client, giving them the same presence, the same attention, and the same integrity. If he said he was going to come back tomorrow with food for that person, he did it. he said he was going to come back tomorrow and buy that person coffee, he does it. And that's where I'd like to go today. So this article, when you have a chance to read it, is all about this conversation, and where he takes it is really, really interesting. Simon Sinek talks about it. James Carse wrote before Simon Sinek all about why and all about integrity, and that it's an infinite game. If you say you're going to do something, do you actually do it? Even if you're just saying it in your own head. All right, takeaways so far. Where should we go with this conversation?
I think it's a good conversation because we can imagine all kinds of things, how integrity of another person feels to another person who is getting the contact from person A, so person B. But I think if person A had been lacking in follow through type of integrity and from different directions, when they start doing it, for example, even not quite black and white integrity. So say somebody asks you to do something. Somebody asked me, Lisa, would you like to in a few weeks go to dinner with me? Say I'm person B. And I say, sure, but I don't know. I can't really make plans that far in advance because I don't know what I'm doing then. Instead of me making that commitment to them and they be part of the plans in advance, and I write it on my calendar and I've made room for them. So if I start, if I'm one of those people who hems and haws and won't make the commitment, but then I start doing it and I start saying, sure, I'm going to write that down and where I haven't been, I think over time, it's a good thing because you're learning how to make commitments to people and keep them.
Yeah.
And not being willy-nilly and all about you. A preferred thing coming, or if something else comes up that you would prefer to do, and so you cancel.
You've already committed to something else, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
But some people, they make up a little white lie to call person A the first commitment and say, you know what, I'm really not feeling good, or I forgot about this appointment, and they think it's okay to do that. And so this is a person they're leaving who has made time for them, change, you know, their plans for the day are around that person for a few hours, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're doing a terrible rudeness to somebody and disrespecting the value of their time. And I think once the person starts giving that respect, I think you just can't help but turn into a different type of person if you make that a pattern and then a habit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, do what you say what you do, right? It's yes or no. When somebody says, "Oh, hey, we should grab coffee next week," I'm not going to say yes if I don't actually want to do that. Right.
And if you've been a person who does say yes and then doesn't keep the commitment, how do you think how do you think about yourself when you're doing something like that to people on a continuous basis?
Yeah.
That's how we live.
Yeah. Judy, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was kind of going to take it in a slightly different direction. You know, those quizzes that are, you know, do you keep your commitments to yourself more than you keep them to other people? And, you know, you've got the 4-square thing that with the quadrants. I don't tend to, and I never mean to make commitments if I don't agree with them to begin with.
Yeah.
And the ones I make, whether it's to other people or to me, if I make it, then I'm going to keep it because it was something that had value to me to begin with.
That makes sense. That makes sense. David, and then we'll come to you, Lisa.
At the risk of sounding a little negative, I'm amazed how many people are out of integrity, but it doesn't. And I think we talked about this before in this call and other calls about just the lack of follow-up. I had a friend of mine say to me a few years ago, can you imagine what kind of world it would be if people just did what they say they were going to do?
Oh,
And not that you ask them. I demand that you get back to me tomorrow. They say, oh, no, I'll call you tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Great, thanks. 4 o'clock comes and goes and they don't call them. But I think it's really important to never dumb ourselves down to that point. And with all due respect to truck drivers, my mom used to say to me, don't lower yourself to a truck driver mentality. And do you want to talk like you're educated, or do you want to talk like you dropped out of school? So how your language is and so forth. But it reminded me of something else somebody once said, and I said something about some girlfriend, I love her or something. And he said, if you're saying I love you to her with the expectation of getting love, I love you back, you're saying it for the wrong reasons. So that's my way of saying, even though people aren't in integrity with you, that doesn't mean you should ever compromise your integrity. And I noticed that with the raising my two sons. One of the reasons I have my two rock star sons is because I set a good example. And sometimes it's frustrating, but you never want to lower your expectations for yourself.
yeah. Agreed. I think you're being in integrity with yourself, most important thing. And I think biggest struggle for people who are trying to quit doing a bad habit, they say they're going to quit and then, they go back to it. So they start to doubt themselves because they're out of integrity with themselves. Lisa, go ahead.
What actually caught my attention, though, was the email that you started the conversation with. And how do you deal with clients where you come to an agreement halfway through, they decide they're done?
Mm-hmm.
And it really comes down to, it comes down to a money thing.
Yeah.
Are you supposed, what is the protocol, and how do you both end the relationship feeling whole? And, I've been in that position, a couple of times over the last 6 years. And I don't know how I've handled it, if it's right or wrong. It's just what feels best for me. But often that doesn't leave me feeling like, yes, I may have done the right thing, but it kind of goes against my grain.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll be interested to see your takeaway after reading the conversation in the article. Townsend brings up some really interesting, just insights into that other person who's going back on their word. Because ultimately, when somebody backs out of your contract or backs out of working with you or doing the work, especially as a health coach, right? Especially as a health coach, they're going back on their word to themselves that they've said they wanted to get healthier.
Right. And, what is the ethical response when it comes down to the money? What is, and I don't know, is there a black and white answer? And I'm sure I'm certain, some of you will be like, well, you snooze, you lose, you're done. You're not getting your money back.
Mm-hmm.
And, maybe that's a lesson I need to learn. I'm pretty clear on no refunds, and then occasionally it happens, and I try to come up with something that I can at least live with, because that's part of the compassion piece it gets complicated. I don't know what is ethical.
Yeah, but if
integrity.
Sajad just said it's what the contract says. If it's in your contract, no refunds, no exchanges, no whatever, you back out, you lose. Like Steve Hardison I spoke about, who's $100,000 up front. And if you back out after the first session, your payment goes to charity. Sorry.
Well, I wish I was in that position that I could just tell us to go to charity. I wouldn't feel so bad.
Right, right. Kevin.
Fun topic. First, I'll just say, David, yes, I agree. And I really, I just see it everywhere. And for most of my career, people, they commit to something, they say they're going to do it, and then they don't follow through. And then it puts you in a very difficult position. I've seen that time and again in the workplace where, hey, I'll get you that report on Saturday, on Friday. And then, it doesn't come through. And then it's like, now I have to scramble. So then and it becomes my emergency. I'm also wondering, how are people defining integrity? How does each person define it for themselves? For me, it's, you know, if I say I'm going to do something, you can just guarantee it's going to be done. If I commit to something, that is a done deal. And it might take time for you to learn that about me and time working together or just being friends. But man, it just over and over again where people aren't following through. And thankfully, I think I've gotten to the point, for the most part, where I know it's not about me. It's not. It's their behavior. Their behavior is not following through, and then I just dig into why do people behave the way they do, and you know what I've learned over my 22 years of experience and digging into human behavior. It's usually something to do with their own pain. They made that commitment, maybe because they thought that's what you wanted to hear. That could just be one idea, but that's what they thought you wanted to hear, so they said it. They made a commitment, and they're just incapable of actually following through for whatever their own reason is. So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at these days. But I'm definitely really frustrated with it.
Yeah, and when you have a chance to read the conversation that I shared, it's fascinating how he sees it as the other person's issue 100%. Like there's no blame on the coach's part. There's no attachment on his part. Like I don't care if you decide no after you said yes, but this is more about you. And that's the part that was intriguing for me.
I
So
completely, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay, Lisa.
I'm sorry.
We're catch.
All right. I completely agree with that, Suzanne. It is about the other person. Not whether or not whether or not they value keeping their word, or whether or not they've been taught growing up that how important it is to respect other people. I was taught from a little kiddo down and up that if you tell somebody you're going to do something, you never back out because something better comes along. And I remember that from like being 12 years old when I was old enough to start making plans with other people. And but even before, so it is about the person who says, yes, I will. If they don't, oh well, you know, and it's never anything to take to heart when somebody backs out on you. It never is.
Right.
I think.
I have a question and then a few comments.
Yeah, you looked up Webster's dictionary.
You wanted me to do that first?
Yeah.
That's the first thing I did. That's why I was on my phone.
I love it. Okay.
What are we talking about? Let's see what this thing means. The quality of being honest and having strong moral principles, moral uprightness. Definition 2, state of being whole and undivided. But my undergrad's out of DePaul in philosophy, so that goes on for way longer than those two sentences go.
Yeah.
I had a question and then I'll get into my comments. Kevin, the last thing you said was you were frustrated. You're frustrated by people's lack of integrity. All right.
How many times would you say a week you notice somebody not keeping their word or doing what they say?
I mean, it's like daily.
Daily.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Maybe you need a new circle of people. I'm glad you're here.
It's not with my close friends and whatnot. It's not a problem. But you know, I can't tell you how many people just they don't show up on a call that you scheduled, and you've got your reminders and notifications. The world of dating with the ghosting that goes on. The world of job searching with the ghosting that goes on. It's everywhere. I just see it everywhere, and I also see people following through for sure, and I know how wonderful it is. But when somebody, makes a commitment to something, okay, I'm going to believe you. And then, oh, Lisa, what is ghosting? Oh, I would love to answer that. Someone says, yes, I'll make a commitment. And then you don't hear back, like, They said, yes, I will meet you. Yes, I will call you. Yes, I will deliver this to you, whatever it is. And then They don't. And ghosting in the dating world, ghosting's like, okay, you're texting, you're chatting with someone that you're gonna date or you've been on a date or two, and then you reach out and you just never hear from them again. That's ghosting. Like vanish like a ghost.
Okay.
That's good. But it happens not just in the dating world. I mean, it happens, you know, in the workplace, in the job searching thing. I mean, you know, so.
Well, it happens with clients sometimes.
Clients, yes, absolutely. See, I'm not a coach per se, so yeah.
They book a call and you have a great call. They say yes, and you send off your contract and your invoice and nothing.
Yeah.
So I started getting a deposit on that call when they said yes.
Good for
Okay.
you.
I have 6 thoughts.
6. Oh boy, it's going
Sorry,
up.
I kind of went on there after your first.
No, it's great.
Okay, there's 10 people talked. I'm going to have at least 6 thoughts.
Okay, cool.
Number 1, there's a philosophical flaw when there's an assertion before the conversation. So when there's an automatic value judgment that the question is one of integrity, and it's not necessarily one of integrity. I think it goes this. David inspired this thought. I think the integrity has to start with self first, like love and respect. So if you don't have honesty as a value, like was said about growing up, if that's not a value you have and you don't have it within you, then, you know, like self-respect and self-love, you can't love or respect others if you don't love and respect yourself. Point 3, I think that it's a lack of integrity with self to blame the other person for why you're not getting that contract closed. That's a matter of process. It's your fault you're not getting that contract closed. You got to close while people are hot. And I know this is a philosophical conversation, but this pertains to that part. You got to close while they're excited about working with you. You got to get a deposit and you got to get a contract signed, at least an email. Otherwise, when people go away, they're thinking all negative thoughts. Do I really want to work with Suzanne? Can I really afford this? Is this really the right time for me to be doing this? So I think that's a lack of integrity for itself to blame the other people that aren't following through with their word, because there's a process to fix that. I'm getting sued for the first time in 10 years. Somebody, as of yesterday, somebody wants a full refund, and they were 5 days from finishing my program because they're not successful. And I give everybody they need, everything they need to be successful. And until yesterday, I would tell you, even my 4% of my clients that failed would tell you it's not my fault. Now I can't make that assertion anymore. But that's a lack of integrity with self. If 96% of the people are succeeding and you're failing, that's not my fault. You're not doing what you got to do. But it is a lot easier to blame others than to blame yourself when you're not successful.
Yeah.
But it doesn't hurt my feelings. Number 5, I think that humans are in general horrible and self-centered, and my friends are the opposite people. So they're the people, I think it's a matter of perspective. Like Suzanne, you do way too much for everybody, which is why you're my friend. And I do the same thing. Sometimes I get resentful, like yesterday. But still.
I hope you enjoyed how I handled it.
No, you're having a bad day. We'll talk about it later. Okay. But anyways, yeah, you got to get like people in your world that are people that don't just that think not what did I do for Kevin, or not what did I do for Kevin, but what does Kevin do for me? Like people that are focused intentionally, that have their mindset on appreciating the value of other people. Because I think by nature, this is my opinion, by nature, humans are self-centered. And so the way to get out of that is to be conscious of your consciousness and appreciate, to be very aware of what others do for you. My friends are the type of, my best friend is a double medical doctorate. He's a pediatric surgeon and a psychotherapist. Even when he's in surgery, he picks up the phone for me and says, "You all right, bro?" And I say, "Yeah, I'm good." He's like, "I got to call you back." But he's always there for me. And all my friends are always there for me. It's a different breed of human, a different level of consciousness of person, how they see that. And then my last point is I was a practicing attorney for over 4 years, primarily in contracts law. The 2 purposes of a contract, the first one is not what you think it is. The first purpose of a contract is to prevent harm of either party. The second is to have a meeting of the minds. So the first purpose is to ensure that there's clarity on what's going to occur for both parties. And if you have that, that is also the morality of a business deal that I gave you. I don't promise wealth. I promise you organization, structure, productivity, and these elements that I teach, pitching and negotiations. That's what I'm promising you. But I'm not promising you that that's going to get you a bunch of money. So when I get an email from a lawyer, you know, and her content is there that she didn't build wealth, I didn't promise you would build wealth. I promised you systems. And if you follow those systems, you will make a lot of money. But if you don't, you won't. That's why I don't do any money back guarantee. I guarantee absolutely nothing because I don't know what you're going to do. Same thing as health coaching. I can't guarantee you're going to lose 50 pounds because I don't know if you're going to work out and eat carrots or eat donuts. I don't know what you're going to do. So it's
Right.
just about what are you warranting? What is it in the law? It's called material breach. What is it you're specifically telling people you're going to get for them? And if you're getting them what you said you would get for them, whether or not they got the results or not, you don't owe them any money. As long as you delivered on your word. All right,
Thank you. Thank you. And I would speak to the fact that I've only had 2 people ever ask for their money back. And it was literally both for the same thing that Sajad just said. They didn't follow the system. They didn't follow the recommendations. They didn't follow the roadmap, and they didn't make any money. Well, guess what? I never promised that. That's why I don't talk about money in any of my programs. I never say work with me and have a $10,000 month every month. I don't say that. And that's why. And Lisa, to your question, the woman most recently gave me a yes on a call, and the group program that she said yes to does not start till June 5th. Well, no way I'm leaving that in the wind. And plus it's a group program that will only have 10 or 12 people. And I fill that very easily as soon as some emails and some phone calls happen. So I said, the program starts June 5th. If you would like to be in that cohort, I require $1,000 deposit to hold your spot. Otherwise, I'm going to market, I'm going to promote, I'm going to do my thing, and those 12 spots will be filled. So if you want to guarantee that you're in June 5th cohort, I'll take your credit card. And she said, okay. So
And-
now I only have to market for 11 people instead of 12.
Sorry, I want to say one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think there's a problem with it. The main problem is integrity with self, whether it's our clients or with ourselves. And so I think it's the hardest thing for people to do. It's a duality where you take 100% self accountability, always blame yourself for everything, but then you don't beat yourself up either.
Right.
So realize we're humans, we're all flawed. The most successful people make the most mistakes. I make more mistakes than anybody else I know because I try the most shit all the time to see what's going to happen and what's going to work and what's not going to work. And then I screw up, and then I don't feel bad about screwing up most of the time. I just go, damn, I screwed that one up. Try not to make that same mistake again. But I think people have a really hard time. I think this is one of the main things I do for people is well, it's your fault. I just tell people it's their fault. And I get all these messages all the time. And I look at it, my first thought is, well, that's your fault. You allowed that to happen. You had the lack of clarity in the relationship. You didn't set the boundaries. You didn't set the systems. You didn't set the protocol. What happened is because you didn't set it up correctly. If you really look at your life, it's your fault. I mean, it's like you're doing things that are not working, and you can change processes, and you don't even have to feel bad about yourself for making mistakes. You don't have to.
Oh, I like that, Kevin. Yeah, spot on. 80 successes doesn't mean that you only had 80 ideas. I love that. I love that. And I think to what you're saying is most people lie to themselves on a daily basis. David and I have talked about this numerous times when it comes to food, exercise, relationships, most people lie to themselves on a day. Oh, I eat healthy. Really? Is that how you got to be 300 pounds? I don't think so, personally. I would fight that.
It's genetic, Suzanne. It's genetic.
Is it? No, it's calories.
No, it's not
Calories
genetic.
out. It's
Well, I'm going to
calories.
dispute that conversation entirely, but we will leave that for another conversation.
Okay, we could talk about that another time. But, I think most people are delusional with their own behavior. No, I don't do that. And I'm going to use one of my closest friends as an example. We eat together often. And she's like, oh, I eat low carb. You had 6 garlic knots the other night. And she's like, I did. So she actually didn't realize that she had 6. Don't ask why I knew the number, which is really rude of me to count, but it was painfully obvious she was eating a lot of them. And I was like, God, is my kid going to get one? I wasn't sure. And she really didn't know, or she's just delusional and, lying to herself about it. And I think when it comes to entrepreneurship, when it comes to, keeping your word with a client or a coworker, most people think they're doing a good job, or they think they're being honest.
Yes, I know when I'm not doing my homework. And I know when I ask myself, well, Lisa, when are you planning on getting around to it? You have to do it. And I'm like, well, I don't know, because I just there's something going on that I can't put my finger on, Lisa. I talk to myself all the time. And but I know I'm not doing my homework, but I look at, and then I said, well, maybe I don't have a passion about that thing. And I'm saying, no, that's not true, because because I say, well, Lisa, it's a whole picture. You can't just go feed the animals and clean the poop, and that's a business. You can't make any money doing that. So you have to do the whole thing, and you've accepted that. So just, when are you going to do it all? And I'm like, well, that's where I ...
Well,
and
you had a big resistance on putting yourself out there with pictures, and you didn't think of it. You didn't think to go out and do your farm chores and take pictures.
And I didn't believe that it was going to work. True. I did, but I didn't try it either.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah. And when I did get more on Instagram and pictures, I got some people who were not in alpacas, but they were in yarn. And I sold like $400 worth of yarn to these 2 people.
With
That
a
doesn't sound like
small
much.
little effort. With a small little effort.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
May I ask Sarah a question? Sarah, what did the put fires out comment mean?
I swear there's always something going on that prevents me from doing stuff, like the car breaking down. Yesterday we had a dog here that we were babysitting that would not stop barking, so I had to cancel all my meetings, because that's not fair to the person on the other side to hear a dog barking through the whole meeting. So I feel like there's always little fires going on in my life that I have to put out, and I need to learn to let others put it out, because I tend to try to be in control of everything that happens in my household.
In my experience with my clients, when they have a hard time delineating between what you said sounded completely legit, so I'm not talking at you or about you. They have a hard time delineating between an emergency and shit happens. So everything is an emergency for them.
No, I agree. I feel like everything's an emergency, and I need to I realized today, okay, the car's down, shit happens. It'll get fixed or it won't get fixed. It doesn't matter right this second. I just need to do what I gotta do.
Yeah.
So I just wanted
would say, Sarah, being comfortable with, my dog barks during a meeting, or, my kid comes in and hides below the camera, and taps me because he wants something. What? And And I just think that's life when you're working at home and rolling with it a little bit more.
Well, normally I deal with my kids and stuff. Not really. I've learned to like let go of that. But like the dog was barking so incessantly, I couldn't even hear myself think. So I wouldn't have been productive on that meeting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I wouldn't have been able to listen and hear what was going on if it was a webinar because the loud yappy dog. And we wanted to help our friend out. I made a commitment to him, even though I knew the dog was yappy, but he had an emergency that he needed somebody to take care of the dog. And
So
I should have stuck with
no dog taken care of when you have to work.
Right.
Yeah.
So I switched commitments, even though because he does a lot for us and I shouldn't have. So that's where I have to up my integrity game. I have to up my follow through. And it's all stuff because I did not learn it when I was younger.
I think it's super cool of you to say all the stuff, Sarah.
I do too.
It's very brave, confident, self-aware, vulnerable.
Yeah, I mean, I've been noticing it lately. I'm like, look, you're doing these things. You need, in order for you to make business, you have to, step into it. And I get afraid every once in a while to step into it. So I admit that. And that's just because I get scared. And I'm sure everybody has gotten scared at one point or another. And I just have to, jump into the fire.
Yeah, thank you for just being willing to talk about it. That's how we all move forward. When we're willing to say, well, I was really out of integrity there. Why did I do that? Because it's always our fault. Like Sajad said, if something gets messed up, and I had something get messed up last week and I didn't like how it turned out, and I could have easily pointed the finger and said, you didn't do this and you should have done better. But instead it's, oh yeah, that was my fault. I didn't ask the right questions. I didn't have the right boundaries in place. I didn't have the right framework in place. Let me fix that. Because
Right.
it'll never happen again. Yes, Lisa, absolutely. What are your values? And if your values are, profoundly serving your clients, the one or two who decide they want out, that's not the norm. That's not you that's causing that to happen.
I think you can also control how people, to an extent, you can control how people treat you based on how you present yourself. Like if you present as soft, nice, kindness is mistaken for weakness. So if you present as super soft, you'll get, one of my former clients, he's like, did you meet with Mark? I'm like, yeah. He's like, did he tell you about his MLM for 45 minutes? I'm like, no, he didn't even bring that up to me, right? Because he's not going to do that. People don't do that to me. They don't show up late to meetings with me. They don't cancel on me for the most part. I had 2 meetings with 2 guys this week that were over 60, and both of them were terribly afraid of me. So one of them 10 minutes into the meeting goes, oh man, I was so afraid. I said, why were you so afraid? He said, I've been fucking my life up. I thought you were going to scream at me. And I said, no, because the first 10 minutes he was telling me why his life was not going well, because he was not taking accountability. He was not working hard enough. And for the past month, he's been posting every day on 5 platforms and going to networking events. And he's trying. I don't get mad at people for trying. I get mad when they don't have the integrity with themselves, when they have the victim mentality. I don't have what I want in the world because I'm not lucky. I don't have the right connections. I don't have investment capital, whatever bullshit lies they tell themselves. So I think, yeah, by the way you hold yourself, carry yourself, present yourself, and your brand, there was a guy that's super famous, I'll tell you this later, Suzanne, who last year he called me in March. He's like, you won't believe what happened to me. I said, what happened? He said, somebody canceled a meeting with me. It was, 3.5 months into the year, and he was shocked because there's certain people that don't get treated that way. There's certain people that present themselves in a way that you ain't going to do that to those people. You're not going to push me around. When somebody holds themselves in a certain way, they will get treated, for the most part, there is exceptions. You'll get treated different. And that's integrity with yourself as well. If you're coming across as super soft, you're gonna get bullied in business.
Well, people aren't late to you because it says right on your booking link that you wait 3 minutes and that's it.
And I don't reschedule.
And you say that too, correct?
And I don't reschedule. That's integrity too. Like my clients always want to wait 5 minutes. I say it's a 30-minute meeting. If you're waiting 5 minutes, you're already right off the bat not showing yourself self-respect. You can't expect respect from other people when you don't show respect for yourself. 3 minutes is plenty of time for you to sit around on somebody that's supposed to be a meeting with you. And you shouldn't be a nice guy or woman. I'm from Chicago. Guy is gender neutral. You shouldn't be a nice guy and sit there for 5 minutes. You're being an idiot. You're not being nice. 3 minutes because you have to value you. And if you don't value you, it's your fault that others don't value you because you don't value yourself. It's lack of integrity with self.
So if you have a client that doesn't show up, do you follow up with them? Do you just dismiss them and they're gone and they're done?
They're fired and I keep all their money because I get paid up front.
You mean potential client, Lisa, like a discovery
No,
call?
I'm talking about, the clients I work with, 99% of the time they show up, but sometimes like life happens. They've got young kids, life happens.
Yeah.
It depends on that, Lisa. Like if you, like I'm speaking in black and white because I'm speaking like I speak to my clients, right? Because they have to hear it in a totally polar opposite way than they're currently behaving, which is with zero self-respect. But there was a guy a couple months ago said my daughter's in the hospital, emailed me 4 hours before the meeting, and I let him reschedule, right?
Right, that's different.
The problem is that gray area of what is acceptable. So one lady canceled because I know what happens when I connect people, whether they show up on time, what they discussed when they met with the person, because people report back to me on my connections. And one lady said 3 weeks in a row to 3 different people she had to reschedule because her son had asthma. Or if you tell me you have a family emergency, I don't give a shit about your family emergency. You better tell me what I want to know is your daughter's in the hospital. Okay, man, your daughter's all right, and let's reschedule. But if I get a generic, it's just you got to show self-respect. It's not that there's no exceptions to it. It's just that too many people, in my experience with my clients, allow too much disrespect of themselves.
So I remember a long time ago going to the dictionary and reading on what integrity is. It had a few different replies like the dictionary does. It pretty much, one of them was, and the last 10 minutes I've been trying to remember it so it makes sense, but the upshot of it is most folks, or many folks, tend to believe that integrity is about positive stuff, self-respect, behaving with respect towards others, being consistent with those behaviors and such. But integrity, according to this particular ABC or 1, 2, or 3 definition, it's about if you are consistent with your behavior, even if you consistently cancel, or if you consistently whatever negative thing, you maintain that consistency. Your integrity is about that. If you meet a person who has a habit of that sort of thing and continues to do that behavior and you know about it, well, that is where their integrity is. They're more concerned about themselves, or they're not concerned about something else that you value, or they just make appointments and quit them. So we can learn about that. So they have integrity, but it's in behaviors and standards that are not positive, upfront, we're calling self-respect. And that's interesting, I found, because I never thought about that. I mean, even maniacal dictators and Hitlers and such, Goebbels, they had a lot of integrity.
But the morals were off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Within their moral and their way of looking at life and doing life, they had a lot of integrity and very consistent, and you could predict their behavior because of what they showed as consistent. in their value system. I just found that interesting to throw it out there.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really interesting. And I think there's a great point that we never know that other person who, makes a discovery call or makes an appointment with you and doesn't show up. We never know if something better came along in their mind. And I can relate so many things in business to dating that if you are dating more than one person and there's one that you like better and they call for a date Friday night and you already have plans with the other one, what do? What do most people do? They cancel with the one for the better, what they think is the better thing to do, whether it's a date, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a client, whether it's a free webinar. How many times have you registered for something free and not gone? What was that, Kevin?
I accidentally insulted Kevin trying to compliment Jason. Damn it. I fucked up again.
So is it FOMO that keeps people from being really in integrity?
Maybe, but I think, like to Lisa's point, I think it is an interesting, oh, I didn't know that about the definition, right? Like that is an interesting thing, but it still comes down to how you're presenting to the world. Because if it's somebody who's consistently not showing up where they said they were going to show up and when, well, that's still being out of integrity because every time they're making that promise. Long term, like if you know them or happen to know them, oh, well, that's just who they are, and then you can decide whether or not to keep them in your life or not. But they're still out of integrity if they're saying I'll be here then and they're not. Yeah, I think there's just a FOMO thing. Like, yeah, who knows why? I mean, it can be any reasons, but I think that is there's still just integrity with that goes away, if this
Yeah.
quote unquote better thing or not.
Well, I think we're all kind of in the public eye a little bit here in this room, right? We're out there in the world on social media. And I feel as though if I say yes to somebody's summit podcast appearance, and that yes comes with promotional requirements, right? You need to promote, you need to share, you need to email, you need to do all the things. If I can't fit those things in, or my assistant can't, I have to say no to that opportunity. And I've noticed, depending on where someone is in their business, they will say yes to those opportunities just to see what they can get and not have to deliver on the emails and the sharing and the posting, because they don't do that unless they're getting paid to do that. And one of my clients just had that happen with a major influencer on her podcast who was in the middle of a book launch. She agreed to all the terms and then didn't do it. Didn't promote, didn't email. She just took the promotion that she was given, on that podcast, but didn't do her part. And her answer in response to why she didn't was because I don't know you. I don't have trust with you. So I'm not going to share you with my people. What? That would have been helpful to know at the beginning. And it was a really big aha moment for my client reaching out to, somebody with 25,000 followers. Or no, I think it was close to a couple 100,000 followers and a major book deal. It was fascinating response. Oh, why didn't you promote? I don't know you. Why would I promote for you if I'm not getting paid? Wow. But you agreed to it. Fascinating.
Well, I think that was a really good example of this lack of integrity, right? They make an agreement, they make a commitment, and they don't follow through. And I think it can be just as simple as that. So was it something that your client did wrong?
No.
It seemed like they had everything in order, and the other person agreed and then didn't. I mean, I took a guy to court over the exact same thing. We had a contract. What your part is, what my part is, what your value, your monetary investment, my monetary investment, da 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 da. Didn't deliver. I sued him. I won.
You can also disqualify. I learned this from Donnie Bovin. I only saw him speak once, but it was useful.
Yeah.
We don't get along because we're the same. But told me I went on a diatribe. I had to look up that word. I hate it when I'm insulted with words I don't know. Disqualification. So I learned this from him. So I send people, well, when I'm not banned from LinkedIn, I send them the 8 tips to posting on LinkedIn. Then I watch them for 5 days. And then if they don't do exactly what I said, then I DM them and say, because they're looking to hire me, right? I say, why aren't you following what I'm saying? And one lady said, well, it's way too much stuff to keep track of. You don't have to keep track of shit. It's on a piece of paper. You can just look at it. So if you can't do that, you're not going to be able to do my program. So that is me again I think it's best to always take responsibility even when you don't think it's your fault. And that's the hardest part. Well, I did everything right and they still didn't do it right. But still, what else could I have done? Because the only thing I can control is me and my words, my behavior. The other thing I do now is I have a contract on DocuSign and I have them read it with me. It's only 12 provisions. And I have them read it and I tell them, please don't hire me if you're not going to do this. I don't need the money like that. I'd rather not work with you if you're not going to follow it because it's not going to be fun. So I have just 2 ways of disqualifying. I think creating ways of, like with Suzanne and I talking all the time, testing people out first, seeing what they do before you give them the bigger opportunity or do a bigger deal with them. Test people. I don't think that's a bad thing to do. You're finding out if they're legit or not before you do. I turn down more than half the people that will hire me just to make sure I'm doing the best I can to not let people hire me that are going to fail. And Suzanne and I know a huge coach who 3 of her clients have failed because she lets people hire her that are not ready, that I know of, that are not ready for her level of program. And then it's not necessarily she has a bad program. She has a lack of integrity in accepting money from people she shouldn't. So
I know a lot of surgeons who will not take on a patient because that patient's a smoker and they don't want to include that smoker in their data because
That's right.
will notoriously not do well in the outcome after the surgery. So it's just like what you're saying, Sajad, just, qualifying, testing, however you want to, put those measures in place. It's things like you said, like we can take control, we can be proactive, we can up our game. And then put in the comments, there's always something to learn, even in successes, it's just a little easier when it's a failure. But you can learn from your successes as well.
Well, I think one of my biggest successes with partnering with other people, inviting them into, my circle is seeing them in action first. It's never done me wrong. Judy is an incredible workshop deliverer, speaker, presenter. I saw her before we met. I went to one of her things and I never had to worry about putting her in front of my people. There's some other people that I didn't do that with who didn't do such a good job on their workshops or their presentations. And they need more help. They need more refinement. But that's my fault because I didn't check them out first. I didn't see them in action first. How many of us have been on a crappy podcast? because we want exposure and we say yes to something and we're like, I get halfway through an interview, I'm like, oh, what did I say yes to this for? Right? It makes me look bad. So I've told one, please don't publish that because I didn't even get to talk. I smiled a lot. All right. Well, let's start to wrap up. Final thoughts, final takeaways from this conversation. Kevin.
It was fun. Glad I could be here.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. Lisa.
I'm just finding with go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
No,
Two Lisas. I forgot. Lisa P.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not good with this part. I know that it goes both ways because, like I said, I didn't do my homework. Many times. But I know it's valuable, so I know that I will do it at some point. I think, and then I talk to myself like that, and I'm like, okay, fine, you're being honest, but you're not helping your business, not one bit. So that's me being honest.
So work on it. Your final takeaway is work on it for yourself, and the other people will happen kind of naturally.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Judy, takeaway. You didn't say much today, girl.
I was listening because so much of it is stuff that the boundaries and the self-respect and all of those things are so frequently things that I work with people, with clients about, right? And the difference, Sajad, what you were saying, you teach people how to treat you, right, based on how you present yourself. And I see that when I'm working with people with relationships all the time. When they change their beliefs about themselves, the relationships with others change. So I was just interested in listening to all the examples that, are just kind of, that's true. And so, yeah, I do like the idea of asking somebody not to put up a podcast that you didn't care for. I always watch them before I share them, but I haven't had one where I wouldn't have, let them share it. But that's something to store away if I ever hit one first. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you ever do, there's always that opportunity when they stop recording, and they say, "What'd you think?" Well, I thought it sucked. And didn't make me look very good, but it was great for you. Yeah. Sajad, takeaway from today besides thinking you were amazing.
That was my main thought. I thought it was great.
Okay.
No, I think that you did a perfect job facilitating this and caught the spirit of what you wanted to have it be.
Nice.
David and I were a part of something similar for a couple of years, and it's a major void in my life not having this. So it is super important for me
Awesome.
to have this in my life.
I love it. Well, I love being able to bring the philosophy side of things to what I do because I spend a lot of time thinking about that stuff, and I know so do you. And so, wow, in one day, I taught you something that you did not know, and I filled a void. Wow. Wow. That's my takeaway from today. I'm like,
You want to talk about pineapples? Come on, Suzanne.
no, we're not talking about that.
Tell them what you said to me this morning.
That pineapples were the symbol for swingers, and he did not know that. So next time you're walking around your neighborhood and you see a pineapple flag, you're going to have an aha moment. Just saying. Lisa D.
Pineapples have a positive impact, Kevin. We'll talk about it later.
Okay.
It just gave me a moment to pause. Like, when I do have clients that show up late and my typical response of what that looks like, because I'm very giving of space and grace. So just something to contemplate and see if I want to shift or if I'm okay with the space and grace that I offer my clients.
Okay. Awesome. Barbara, takeaway from today.
Well, Judy, I have to agree. In New England, pineapple is a sign of hospitality. But anyway, I guess it depends on what kind of hospitality we're talking about.
It could be welcome or it could be welcome.
Yes, well, yes, it's all in the
Yeah.
tone of voice. That whole pre-qualification thing. And
Yeah.
when I'm going to do a podcast, I always, watch the person and see how they conduct their podcasts.
Yeah.
And this gave me pause, when I make a reservation for a free thing, and then I get a scheduled bump. I don't go in and cancel my reservation, and maybe I should.
I definitely within the past year or so have made more of an effort to, if I do register for something that's free or if it's within my community even, and then something comes up, I usually try not to have something come up if I say yes, but canceling a free webinar reservation to me is just next level integrity. Next level, unless I'm going to watch the recording and there's a recording coming, then I allow that to happen. And, because I want to watch it. Jason, takeaway from today.
I think the big thing of, so John mentioned, you teach people how to treat you, and that's another one of those, if you take it in, the accountability of just like, you stop looking out there and go like, okay, what am I doing that's bringing this in? And for me, I don't have that problem because, I'm a jerk and I don't mind being a jerk. But like, I think there's a level of figuring out, I don't have the how-tos for someone, right? And that's interesting to me, that I think could be its own big discussion and figuring out, right? What's the how-to energetically, to teach people that to treat you better,
Well, I think we did an incredible job on our live stream today and in the post from yesterday, modeling exactly what we talked about Wednesday night that irritated you. And I know it irritated you, right? We did an awesome job, like modeling the exact opposite of that between you and I. So if that can bring a little knowing that you know how to do it right, because look, the very day I did it right with Suzanne, and then she did it right with me today, like, wow, it shows, I don't know, somehow that makes me feel, well, it makes me feel better for you, but it also made me feel better in that situation of reciprocity and doing what you say, and a big aha moment, about people who don't. And I think it's cool when it sucks to realize that about somebody, but to model the exact opposite just boosts my integrity so much, and yours too.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Awesome. David, takeaway from today.
Just very briefly, I know I got to go in a second. Great topic. And I think anything around integrity is always interesting to me. And the biggest compliment I can give somebody else, that's why I love these masterminds and the quality of people that are on them, and putting it together, Suzanne, is because if somebody can say something that changes my mind, it's the biggest compliment I can give them. You know what? I now disagree with what I agree with what you said and the way you put it. And so it's just in that whole, all those self words, the integrity thing, self-respect, self-esteem, self-confidence, self-awareness. And one of the modules I teach is on how you find yourself and have a great relationship with yourself. And one of the ways you do that is you embrace gratitude in your life. And I contend it's the most important relationship you'll ever have. And when you are a 10 on a 1 to 10 scale in terms of self-esteem and self-respect and self-confidence, your whole life works better. So it's because I think people that aren't integrity or out of integrity don't have a good view of themselves.
Yeah. And I will share my challenge for you guys today. Notice what you say to yourself. I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that, or I'm not drinking any alcohol right now because I'm doing this fitness challenge for myself. And I notice I'm not drinking has a powerful effect when I go to want one. Oh, that's right. I said I wasn't doing that until this day. And just notice that about yourself from today's conversation. What am I saying to myself that's bullshit? And that's where I'll leave you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Suze.
Have a great weekend.
Too.
See